Good evening, everyone. It is 7 o'clock, and I'm going to open up this evening by the first of two public hearings that we're holding this evening prior to our regular meeting. So the first public hearing is to hear oral or written comments to the amendments proposed to Ordinance 498, salary of the trustees, and Ordinance 552, salary of the president. For anybody who is not familiar with that ordinance, we simply removed the restriction of 16 meeting minutes. Salaries were not discussed. So is there anybody from the public that wishes to offer a comment on the two ordinances for the salaries? Going once, going twice. All right, we are going to close that public hearing. And we're going to open up a public hearing for Ordinance 557, which is for the licensing and regulating of marijuana businesses permitted within the Village of Romeo, and to provide penalties for violations of this ordinance. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to make public comment regarding that ordinance? Going once, going twice. Okay, I'm going to close that portion of the public hearing as well. And I'm going to tap my gavel. It is 7:01. I'm going to open up the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Trustees of Romeo. Ask you to all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Bartholomew?
Here.
Edwards?
Here.
Fowler?
Yes.
Hart?
Here.
Parker?
Here.
Wozniacki?
Here.
President Malzahn?
Here.
7 present.
Perfect. We have a quorum. Okay. We have a consent agenda up on our agenda the next. I do have to make an addition to the meeting agenda, so if we would like to remove that, or I can just make the amendment, which is to add the resolution for signature approval.
Under new business?
And, Mark, did you get a chance to look at that statute for the state of emergency?
I did not, so my recommendation would be to
Okay.
just go ahead and declare it and just act accordingly.
Okay, so then I need to also add the extension of the state of emergency.
Under new business?
If we could the state of emergency was, I guess it did conclude, so we can add it under new business. We can just add that as G. But if you could add the resolution for signature approval under unfinished business to item D. Okay. Also in that consent agenda, so you have the council bills and the vendor report, just for the public. Council bills, $32,940.16. And the vendor report subtotal, the total, $211,954.92.
I'll make the motion.
Well, could we pull those out? One, I couldn't open up some of the attachments again for the stuff that was sent out, and then also the vendor activity report looks like it was printed for just a single day, not for the month in regards to the checks and stuff going out.
I think that's your check register report that you're holding up.
Yep, and then you look at the vendor activity report was printed for a single day. It wasn't printed for an entire month to show us what coincides with everything.
I'm showing 720 down to 7.
I got 8/17 to 8/17 of the same day, same year.
Check dates say 7/20 to 8/17.
Yeah, that's 8/17 to 8/17, unless I'm reading something wrong. The vendor activity
No, these
report.
include everything from the report that's 7/20 to 8/17. Rebecca and I did go over the amounts.
Well, if that's true, then there's multiple checks for, we'll just say like Cintas on the check registry, that 2 of them are more than the total on the activity report. So there was just a discrepancy there, so I couldn't compare or look at anything.
It's at the header of the report, Catherine. If you look under vendor activity report, it says activity from 8/17 to 8/17. I believe that's just the date that that report was run.
Activity
Right, that's the date the
8/17
report
to
represents.
8/17.
That's the date the report represents. These are the checks that will be, if approved, will be mailed out tomorrow.
Yeah, normally the activity report has a date range on it, not just the date printed, because the date on it actually says 8/12.
All right, so do you want to pull everything except for the agenda?
Can we just postpone these until we get the appropriate paperwork to compare?
Anybody else?
No,
wanna
because
have
they
that?
match the other report
You need
that's
a second
dated
on that?
7/20 to 8/17.
I see.
Yeah, you got the same thing.
Yeah. Well, they don't match, that's the problem.
The checks and then the amounts are what they are. The 8/17 is tomorrow's date of when those checks are due to be mailed. So the activity is not from 8/17, because that's tomorrow.
Normally, the activity
From
is
the
a
30-day
date
period.
range that coincides with what happened for the month that we're approving.
That's what's on the staple part of it. That's all the checks
Right.
listed.
If you look on your check register report, all of these are listed within there. And so if you wanted to find out the date that the check was actually
That goes from 7,
input into the system, from 7/20
To 8/17.
down to 8/17.
Yeah, I mean, so, but yeah, this report does nothing then. It normally coincides and it doesn't, so that's, I just wanted to compare. So, if we can postpone, great, if not, I can't vote on those.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda, and then we can,
The current, yeah, then we gotta pull out
support.
the last agenda.
All in favor of the agenda approval?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Then you wanted to, we have minutes in the consent.
The
Yours was
July
for the
9th.
agenda, or for the consent
well,
agenda.
was there anything with the minutes?
Yeah, so I was saying I would pull out
Okay.
July
So,
19th.
all right, just the agenda.
Okay, not the consent agenda, the meeting agenda.
Right, correct.
Okay, I just
We're
wanted to
pulling everything
clarify.
out.
Okay. So you have minutes in your packet from July 19th. Any discussion?
Yes. Under, well, 3, the motion made by Bartholomew, supported by Hart, to approve the bills. It has me voting twice, yea and nay, and trustee Fowler not voting at all. That needs to be corrected.
Okay.
That was a no.
At the same point, it also only has, the motion is to approve the bills in the amount of 53,000 and,
All right, I will include the other amount.
Yeah, an absence from this meeting, I guess.
Yeah. And typically, wouldn't the agenda, the draft, or the minutes be written up in order as they happen? Because I don't think that section, some of these motions happened before they were listed, so I don't know if that is supposed to happen in like listed in chronological order. So that's something to look at on that. If we go to 1, 2, I think it's page 4. Motion by Hart, seconded by Bartholomew to approve the draft of ordinance 557 with the following edits. I don't think we approved the ordinance, right? We approved to make changes.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's written as approved with the following edits. So it's just the wording is not what was said, if you listen back to it. And then again, on that one, I voted twice, and trustee Poznansky didn't vote at all.
Which item are you on?
This is item E, but it's on the next page.
Do you have those noted?
Yes.
Anything else during the meeting on the 19th?
I do have one more.
Okay.
Second to the last page, 12, closed session. We have Melzon voting twice on that one.
I will edit
Second
that.
last page.
Second to the last page.
That's it.
And what is it?
Number 12.
Can you restate that?
Which?
Melzon is voting twice. It starts and ends with that name.
Number 12.
Number 12, right here.
Okay, 12, okay, for the closed session.
Yes. Just listed twice, my name.
Oh, okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve the July 19th minutes with those amendments.
One other thing I'd like noted that I did step out for the portion of the closed session.
It's in your closed session minutes that are in front of you?
Okay. If it's in there, then we're good.
Okay.
I'll support it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
One. Paula.
Who said no?
Fowler.
I did.
Okay, you have your closed session minutes from July 19th. Discussion?
On the last page, the first motion also has Malzahn voting twice.
I'll make that edit.
I'll make a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes with that one correction.
Support?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You can hand those back in to Catherine then. Okay. So you have the council bills and the vendor report. Again, I have those two totals there.
I'll make a motion to pay the council bills and the vendor report.
I'll support. Call the roll. I need other
I
discussion.
have a quick question
Sorry.
on the check register one. There's a couple, second page. I see a few different Audio Century, and Tech City. Does this have to do with putting in of the systems at DPW and wastewater?
They also came and put this little speaker here.
Okay,
So there were 3.
so it's including all of them?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Is there anything else other than those 3 on here that has to do with installing anything at DPW?
Not that I can recall. Catherine, do you recall on your approval of those invoices?
There were a couple that came in for wastewater. Might have been 1 or 2 that came in for DPW. I was not prepared to answer that question, so that's why I do not have that documentation in front of me.
But I don't believe it was for any, it wasn't for any office equipment or
Okay.
any other.
I'm just trying to check that we're not going over what we approved here for the installation of the surveillance at each place. That's all. Trying to add it up. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Edwards?
Yes.
Malzahn?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Fowler?
No.
Hart?
Yes.
Parker?
No.
Poznanski?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-2.
Okay, we have no special presentations. We have no correspondence. Public comment. Anybody in the audience that wants to offer public comment on any item of their choosing? Yes. Would you please state your name and address for the record?
Hi, I'm Ruth Heiderbrock, 354 Salem Drive South. I'm a resident of the village and Washington Township, and I'm also the founder of the Mitt TV. I just have a couple announcements that are kind of important time-wise. The Mitt TV magazine is out, will be out the first week, next week. It's a free magazine. It goes out to 6,000 people, and it'll be in everyone's business, restaurants, bars, and all of our local locations. One of the most important things that this particular issue holds is the Romeo Lions and the Parks and Rec guide in the center is all from Thursday to Monday, minute by minute, what's happening, what time to be there, where to find it. There is one slightly large change, and that is the venue has changed for the car show. It's no longer going to be at Ford, it's going to be at Blue Water. So that address and that location is going to change, and that's a pretty big event here for Peach Festival. There will be an insert inserted into the magazine for everybody because those changes weren't made till after we had already gone to print. And the last one is kind of a sad one. Joshua, our lead producer at the Mitt TV and one of our main guys that have been working with you for 5 years, has gotten a management position closer to home. So we will be losing Joshua at the Mitt TV, and I know you guys all love him. So we want to wish you the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, officer reports. My president report for August 16th. First and foremost, I'd like to express my condolences to the family of Senator Paul Mitchell, who passed away just a few days ago. He was very kind and friendly to Romeo and put his best efforts forward in helping us to get some things done. So I appreciated his efforts and the efforts of his staff, and his presence will be missed. On to happier things. Trees, trees, trees. We love our trees, but many of them have sustained significant damage with all the recent storms. DPW Supervisor Tim Metz has been directing his staff, as well as working with several different contractors to clean up the storm damage and in some cases take down the diseased ash and hollow maple trees. The tree board is as quickly as possible drafting a planting care and maintenance plan for our trees with the goal of net zero loss of treescape. At this time, however, the village is unable to address trees that are on private property, only those in the right-of-way. If you have a concern about a tree in your easement, please call the offices so that I can add it to our ever-growing list. And Armada has expressed their sincere gratitude for our assistance after the tragedy that struck their downtown last month. After hearing about the devastating tornado, I reached out to Supervisor John Paderak to see how Romeo could assist, and our DPW crew were able to remove some of the downed limbs and trees in their community. I know there were several other groups of Romeo volunteers that also went to lend a hand. That's what makes this community such an amazing area to live. Neighbors helping neighbors, and communities helping communities. And I was proud to offer my assistance to John Paderak in his time of need. I attended the bi-monthly Ford Engine Plant Focus Group meeting coordinated by Vicki Rad of the MEDC on July 28th. The regional partnership group is focusing on a marketing plan for future uses at that site in hopes of attracting another large manufacturer. It was reported by Dee Skinner, the current plant manager, that preliminary soil boring samples have been done in a few areas of that site that are not currently active. The group is hoping to get a report on that initial testing from VP of Ford Land at our next meeting. The scope of remediation necessary once the production lines have shut down will ultimately dictate the length of time before another user can be up and running. So I appreciate their proactive approach in at least getting some of the initial sampling done. The Michigan Association of Mayors and Presidents, of which I am a member, hosted an in-person workshop in Sault Ste. Marie last week. It was an extreme pleasure to network with over 60 other municipal leaders and learn some best practices that others have put into place in their communities. One of the sessions I attended was to hear legislative updates from Chris Hobarth from the Michigan Municipal League. Of particular interest was the topic of state budgeting. It was reported that the state has seen historic highs in sales tax revenue, and the legislators are trying to figure out what to do with their $1 billion surplus in revenues. From that surplus, we anticipate getting a 2% increase to our revenue sharing, but there's been no word yet on the positioning on constitutional revenues. Mr. Hobarth also discussed the proposed short-term rental legislation that is currently being lobbied in Lansing. If that bill is adopted, it would remove the municipality's ability to regulate it locally, including zoning ordinances. We currently have several properties that are looking to become Airbnb type of rentals, so this could be a potential issue. I will be working with our state representatives as soon as possible to get a better understanding of the local effects. Workshop participants at that seminar and their guests were treated to a private walking tour of the Sioux Locks. This was so fascinating to be down inside the tunnels to see the inner workings of that critical piece of national infrastructure. If you haven't taken a trip to the UP or Sault Ste. Marie, I highly recommend it that you add it to your bucket list. Yesterday, I had the extreme privilege to worship at the First Congregational Church and participate in the opening of not one, but 3 time capsules that were recently found at the church. Thank you to Pastor Kim Newport for the invitation and for her inspirational message regarding the difficult decisions we sometimes have to make, stepping out of our comfort zone and embracing change. Romeo will certainly miss the physical presence of your leadership, Pastor Newport, but are comforted in the fact that you are working to create a newer, bigger, and better vision led by our Creator God. The contents of that time capsule will be on display for a short time, so please take an opportunity to view those artifacts and take a glimpse of our history. There's some really cool photographs and some coins and newspapers. The paper shred and e-waste event is on another joint project between Bruce Township and the Village of Romeo. We set the date for Saturday, October 16th, 2021. So if you participated and have more in your basement you want to get rid of, or if perhaps you missed the last one, please mark your calendars for October 16th. And as always, I continue to hold regular office hours to meet with our property and business owners to address their concerns. If you have a concern, compliment, or complaint that you need assistance with, please call my office at 586-752-3565 and push button 3. That's where you'll find me. Okay. Clerk Trapp.
The cemetery board did meet to discuss a current road proposal that we have received. They're still reviewing the proposal before they make a final decision on when and how to go forward. And we are also addressing trees in the cemetery, because after the last storm, we had one go down, and we're assessing all of our other trees at this time. I attended an in-person CDBG meeting of continuing grant funds that could be available throughout this COVID pandemic. And a special thank you and good luck to these 3 interns and volunteers that were with us in the office over the past year. I have Sam, who will be attending Georgetown, Lauren, who will be attending University of Michigan, and she was our intern, Tori, who is actually, as a high school senior, in the middle of her associate's degree and will be finishing that up this year. Good luck to you girls, ladies, gentlemen. Thank you. I'm done.
All right, thank you. Trustees, I think I normally look over at Nathan first. Oh, treasurer, sorry, Sherry.
I'm excited to say that we're still up and running and processing tax payments, so please come on in, say hello. We're fortunate enough to have Caroline here, who's been working in the office diligently with me, up in line on the payments you can do through the website. If any of you have any questions, please feel free to contact me and I can walk you through the process. And just a reminder, if you have any questions with your escrow payments, those could be directed towards me. And up at the right-hand corner of your tax bill indicates the mortgage servicing company. But there seems to be no issues, and please come in and say hi. We miss talking to people, so that's probably one of the best things that I enjoy is servicing you as the residents and business owners. So, does anyone have any questions for me? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
We're
Jack.
good. We're good.
Zach, nothing? Okay.
All right.
Justin?
Friday, I attended the tree board meeting, and a couple things. We're going to be looking at planting additional trees in the fall, looking at mid-September. Right now, it's 4 to possibly 8 trees, and there could be some other ones that will be in. So we are moving forward, at least replacing some of the trees that we have. Christina Muir attended and is going to help with putting together. There's been an interest. A number of the trees that have been put in are from donations from residents that want to put a tree memorial and have a plaque and that type of thing. So she is going to help facilitate in some options for that, not just the national forest that a lot of the funeral homes put together. A couple of residents had come in where some trees were out and are looking into putting in some trees, and looking at process as far as taking out the trees and getting information to the residents and communicating that, and that was, again, well received. They're very happy that the tree board is alive and we're taking seriously to be able to get to that goal where we have a zero loss, that if we lose a tree, we're at least putting in a tree, and right now we'd like to be putting in 2 because there's been some time that went there. And then also, like Christine and several of the trustees attended the meeting with Bruce and Washington as they're developing how the future of our Parks and Rec are going to be. So, and there's going to be another meeting that is the 20th of September. So, looking forward to maybe some good outcomes from that.
Thank you.
Nothing here.
Trustee Polzinski, anything?
Just a few things. I was able to attend an asset management training given by the MSU Extension. It was a free training, Zoom meeting that I was able to attend. I held a trustee talk last week along with Trustee Fowler, trying to get out there, hear what anyone has to say. And Parks and Rec meeting this afternoon. Hopefully can make the next one. It's supposed to be right before our next council meeting, so hopefully we can all work it out.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sidewalks. Looking to start Dickinson as soon as possible, hopefully before school. And still waiting on some paperwork for the, up in front of the funeral home and the church. And I don't know that that's going to get in before the school year starts, but you know, the sooner the better. And that's all I have right now.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, everybody. Oh, ex officio, Planning Commission.
I was out of town during the time of the Planning Commission. I contacted Chairman Jim. I understand that you and Catherine were there, so which was a good thing. And I think that this summer has been fantastic since everybody's coming out of the COVID to get out as much as you can get out, be seen, because there's going to be that time when you're not going to be seen. So you'll regret every minute. So, like I said, I was out of town, but as far as at the Planning Commission, can you, I know that we had the annexation portion with Chester, which I think is fantastic.
No, the Planning Commission meeting just dealt with the zoning amendments for Barrawada, and there was one site plan review that happened. It was the shortest meeting, and I told Jim I needed to take a lesson. I think we were in and out in less than 7 minutes.
I agree. Let's do it.
And so, yeah, I'm gonna work on shortening our agendas just a tad. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Sidewalk Subcommittee, we haven't met. Nathan touched on that. Rental Inspection Subcommittee, I know we haven't met.
No,
Probably summer we'll get something on the books, as well as the Bruce Sewer Capacity. I did just FYI put an email out to Mike from HRC, who was on vacation as well. So hopefully September will be around and we'll start getting some regularly scheduled meetings. All right, let's move on to unfinished business, the moment most of you have been waiting for. Ordinance number 557 for marijuana. This is our proposed ordinance. The Planning Commission did vote unanimously to recommend the zoning amendments that you also have a copy of in front of you. They offered no comment. The village offices, I don't believe, has received any further comments regarding ordinance 557. So I open up for discussion or a motion to approve 557.
Quick question. The letters that went out to the business owners in the industrial district, was there a time frame that those were supposed to go out in? I've had several reach out to me saying they either didn't get it or got it like day before, 2 days before that planning meeting. I didn't know.
They were mailed out well in advance of the 15 days prior to that meeting. So we have noted on the logs, the addresses. I believe there were 70 letters that went out total.
Okay, because the one that I saw, I think was dated the 27th. They received it the 30th, time stamped, and then the meeting was that following week. So.
If you wanted to bring a copy into that meeting and to the office, we can further discuss
I just want to make sure
scheduling
that the
of public
businesses
hearing
that had
notices.
proper notice for that, because that's
Any suggestions would be greatly appreciated.
Yep.
Excuse me?
Any suggestions on improving the process would be greatly appreciated.
Well, if it's a time frame that we're supposed to be out in, then
Yep.
just follow the time frame, I guess would be the.
Yeah, we delivered them to the post office within the time frame. If there was a delay on the post office end, I'm not aware of it.
So they just have to be posted by.
And we can address that with the post office. I can visit with them tomorrow.
Talking to Christine.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. So if they're timestamped, dated at the post office by that time, then that's all we have to do. I just want to make sure we're covering our bases. I'm not
Yes.
questioning the process. It's just, that's what it is. That's what it is.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Was there any discussion regarding ordinance 557?
I'll make a motion to approve 557. Ordinance 557.
Support?
Any other discussion?
Yeah. A couple things popped up, looks like some wording changes. Section 557-004,
What page?
5. Talks about, third paragraph, no elected official or person who is employed by the village carries on. And then it comment says, and is involved with the implementation, administration, or enforcement of this ordinance shall have an interest directly or indirectly in the marijuana establishment. That word and should probably be an and/or, because that makes it sound like you can be an elected, but if you're not directly involved with the administration or the enforcement of the ordinance, you can still have an interest in that business.
Okay.
Same section, actually the first paragraph, it shall be unlawful for a person to operate a marijuana establishment in the village without a valid license. Marijuana establishment, the definition in the ordinance. Should we exclude under establishments people's personal, because you're allowed personally to grow? We've defined it as, and it makes it sound like it would encompass people's, you can have, 12 plants at home, I think?
It says they can't do that without a valid license, and we're only licensing for those operating in the industrial park. So it wouldn't apply, there's no
Okay.
license that's
Gotcha.
being granted for
Makes
for
makes sense there.
personal. Right.
Now, is the second page, how is this supposed to go together? Was this second packet supposed to be corrections to this? I
This
wasn't quite
is
sure
the
how to-
zoning amendments.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay, so then if you go back a page, so then they're a little contradictory, where it talks about the school, I know we had talked about, almost halfway down, it talks about school, preschool, elementary,
I'm sorry, what
junior
page
high.
are you on?
Four.
Just reference, I'm sorry, page 4? Okay.
And it still says vocational, secondary, community. I know that we talked about taking
I
that out.
thought we took that out in the last draft.
Okay.
Because it's taken out in the zoning, so that's why I was confused if this was supposed to be supplementary to it, so.
Again, it's just in the definitions. It's not written into the ordinance. So a school technically could be defined as any one of those.
Okay.
But then if it lists school
Right, so-
in the ordinance, then it follows that definition.
Mark, you worked on the definition, so do you have,
I'm not sure I understand the point to be made. Is there an issue with the definition or the application of the definition?
Probably both, or just the definition, because I know we talked about removing the vocational, and secondary schools because there are some in that area. And we weren't so concerned about them being by a trucking school or an electrical school as we were concerned about them being by the youth.
I don't believe there are any secondary schools there, but in the industrial area.
Yeah, vocational.
Just the vocation.
Yeah.
So you can strike that if you think it's too broad, if it defines too much.
Well, it's not in the zoning, so I suppose that's okay.
What is this?
Well, is it even in your zoning?
No, we took
Right.
it out of there.
Not in there.
It just says K through 12.
Right.
So it's covered.
So you have
it
a
is covered.
definition that, I get to the second part of my question. You've answered the first one, thank you, about the issue or potential issue with the definition, but then is there an issue or a concern you have with respect to the use of the definition in the ordinance?
If the definition is, and I'm sorry, Megan, to step on this, but if the definition is corrected, then the use of the word school would be fine.
Then my recommendation would be, as you, to which you've already alluded, would be to just take out vocational school from the definition.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we had it covered, because I know we had specifically talked about that.
Yeah.
any other discussion?
Sorry. Let's see if I made, page 12, item F, and I don't know if this is maybe a state requirement, I'm not, the establishment shall not allow the sale, consumption, or use of alcohol or tobacco products on the premises, so you can't go outside and have a cigarette? Is that, that state law for these?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but my recollection is, it is that all of those were taken out, and I think it relates to minors, does it not? It does not, okay. Or use of alcohol.
It's under license requirements,
Right.
yeah, I mean, I can see alcohol definitely, but
Right.
tobacco, you can't, I don't know.
Well, you can take it out and see what happens.
Right.
I don't know how everyone else feels. I don't think that's something we need to monitor, that people want to step outside to have a smoke break.
But I thought originally, I thought that was limited to minors. There have been so many iterations of this. Some of which have come from me and some have not. So let's go to without looking at the statute, I cannot speak conclusively, but it's in prior versions of this. The facility shall not allow the sale, consumption, or use of alcohol or tobacco products on the premises. I apologize for the lack of certainty on my part, but I believe that was taken out of the statute. But as I said, I cannot speak conclusively about that.
They're probably not licensed to sell this stuff, but use of tobacco, I don't see an issue with.
Then you can strike it.
Obviously, we don't want the sale of, though, so we have to reword that then.
I'm not really a fan of making any additional changes to this ordinance, other than what may be typographical, because
Yeah.
we've gone through this process
Well, I can respect that.
numerous times, right? And
Right,
it's
no, I
not
think-
something that was new or that was added. And
I
if they
think we're-
can smoke in the parking lot, they can go sit in their car.
No,
that would be on the
I think-
premises.
I think so far we can make these changes, in my opinion. I think they don't change the intent or anything, it's just,
Well, I disagree with that, because trustee Parker refused to vote on the last one because he didn't see it in its final format. So I am cautious of that history.
well, they can vote down making it with the changes.
Trustee
and
Parker
then we
has
can
been
make
pointing
it up.
out special verbiage which holds up in court.
Is there anything else? Well, Megan, did you have anything?
No, I don't. Do you, Bob?
There was something that you were discussing with when Justin, so if that's the only changes we have, I would make a motion that we remove vocational school from the definitions. We add the word "or," so "and" or is involved in the implementation. And the last is to strike the use of alcohol, but strike "or tobacco products on the premises," leaving alcohol in there. Those three changes, that would be my motion.
Do you still support that motion?
Yes.
Establishment shall.
Catherine, would you call a roll for me? Unless there's any more further discussion. Roll call, please.
Hart,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
President Milzahn,
Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Fowler,
No.
Poznanski,
No.
Parker.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-2.
All right, mass exodus now. Or you're welcome to stay and join the party.
Come on, guys.
Thank you.
Really? Yeah. The fun's about to begin.
One's mine.
All right, let's go.
Okay, let's move on to the other two ordinances that you have in front of you. Ordinance 559 for the salary of the president, and ordinance, I don't know if we have a number yet for the Romeo Board of Trustees, because we had not seen this in ordinance format, but Mark drafted it.
Probably be 560.
Mrs. Malzahn, if I could, before you move on, I believe if you're going to amend the zoning ordinance, you need to do that as well. The planning commission recommended it,
Yes.
but there needs to be a formal vote of this board to
That was
amend.
changing it from 1,000 to 750, and that was the only change, right?
And we added the definitions.
Right, there were two definitions that were added.
Okay, I'll
Which
make a
was-
motion to amend the ordinance to change the 750 and from 1,000 feet to 750. And what did we change in the definition?
We added the definitions for medical marijuana retailer and for,
The provisioning center, I believe?
yes.
Okay, what they said.
I'll support.
I'm going to call a roll on that, please.
Hart,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Poznanski,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
President Malzahn,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Bartholomew.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you for that reminder, Mr. Clark. I appreciate that. Okay, so back to the two other ordinances. Again, it removed the 16 meeting restriction.
And it's one's a resolution? Oh, no.
They're both
No, they're
ordinance,
both-
right?
Got it. Sorry.
So that was the only change, just to remove the
Right,
maximum.
the 16 meeting minute, or 16 meeting
You need a
stipend.
motion, motion
cap, yes.
individually or for both?
Separate.
Start with ordinance 559. I make a motion to approve ordinance with the changes.
Okay.
Support.
Motion by Parker, support by Hart. I'm going to call a roll on that.
Parker,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
President Malzahn,
Yes?
Poznanski,
No.
Fowler.
No.
Motion carries 5-2.
And if I could, I apologize for this, there's a, it doesn't affect what you just did, but just for record-keeping purposes, there's a typographical error, probably mine. The section 251 related to the Board of Trustees, that should be 252. The president's salary is 251.
Oh, on the next one.
So this one, the president is 259?
No.
No.
The president's is 251.
No, no.
That's correctly
Down-
stated.
down
The
here.
trustees,
Got it.
it's section 252, and that's probably my error. I apologize for that.
Okay.
It's the same thing, just the only change was the number of
Yeah, the
meetings.
substance is the same, it's just the designation in what section.
Of the section.
And your municipal code service does that anyway, but just so there's no confusion, to keep the numbering correct.
So I'll make a motion to approve the trustee salary, trustee pay ordinance with the correction, or with the removal of the 16 meetings.
Okay.
Support.
We have a motion by Parker, we have support by Hart. Roll call, please.
Hart,
Yes. Or-
oh, I'm sorry, Parker,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Poznanski,
Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
President Malzahn,
Yes.
Edwards.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, move on to the Village Hall carpet. You have the three proposals in your packet. Romeo floors, Dave's carpet, Village floors.
I spoke with Mrs. Wilson, and in the future, she will attach the spec to the bids. That way, we can all see what they were bidding on. The spec that was written up for the
work.
solicitation of the bids.
Okay,
Oh, that would be nice. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So that's, I already spoke to Mrs. Wilson about it.
okay.
So what are you saying? what they quoted is what's here
What they quoted was all off the same specification for bid.
from this other bid?
So we can see what was sent out for
They all
the
compared
Now,
apples
did you
to
have the
apples.
price on it? Did
Yeah,
you give
they
the
all-
price too? You showed them how much they...
Well, each one of their bid sheets has their own personal price for what was put out for bid.
I'm just asking if you gave...
Zach put out a list of what we
I'm
wanted
sorry,
done.
Yes.
Did you give them the price?
Did I give them the price?
Yeah,
No.
you gave them the sheet to bid on.
I gave the sheet to Cindy Wilson, who then typed it up and put it out.
Okay.
Okay.
So you didn't give the bid to
No.
the other company? Okay.
All I
That
did
was
was,
my
I
question.
followed protocol and handed it straight to the office. The office put it out.
Okay. And is the product the same? On this quote, it doesn't have, well, you know, this, the from Philadelphia commercial?
I believe the list that Zach crafted had a specific product or similar. So it may not be from the same manufacturer if Romeo Floors uses a different brand. So, for instance, they may not all be Mohawk. I don't know very many
The
carpet
same,
brands,
however,
but...
the same carpet, fiber count, whatever
Yes.
weight
Yes.
of carpet would all be...
The specification number was also on there. Is that correct, Mrs. Wilson? Okay. All right. But you put out the same bids to all of these. Okay.
So the main difference I see in the three is that Village Floors, looks like they included a complete subfloor replacement. And the other ones have just minor prep if needed. So that would be the only big,
Well, they should have indicated that, a sub-note on the bottom indicating that
Yeah.
this price should have been there, but they all bid it out on the same thing. So that's...
yeah, no, yeah, it looks apples to apples,
Yep.
with the exception of that.
So I'll make a motion that we accept Romeo Floors bid at $53.20.
Support?
We have a motion by Fowler, we have support by Edwards. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Real quick, is this capped then at the 5320? If they come back and say, hey, we need another 1,300, 1,400 in subflooring? Do we have any variance then on
It
that?
says floor prep where needed.
Where
And
needed?
that's what was on the spec. So we all had a chance to bid on the same thing. They
Roll
all
call.
came through the office, correct? Okay.
Roll call, please.
Fowler?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Kwasniewski?
Yes.
President Malzahn?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item number D, we added resolution for signature approval. I have an executed purchase agreement for the vacant lot that's at 129 Church Street, which is adjacent to the post office. And through the title company, they have requested documentation verifying authorization from this board for me to execute the closing documents.
I'll make a motion, we give you approval.
I second.
You need a roll call on that, since it's a resolution? Yes.
That was by Fowler, second by Parker.
Yes.
Okay. Fowler?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Kwasniewski?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
President Malzahn?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Hopefully, we'll be closing on that before the week is out.
He is ready.
So you have downstairs, you didn't put that in your president's report.
Well, it's not actually closed, so I was going to wait until it was closed.
That's what we had sitting.
Correct.
Okay, just wanna
That's the
make sure.
resolution, just authorizing me to execute the closing documents, right? And Mark has reviewed that. We're waiting for the title, the closing package to come. But we do have an executed purchase agreement for that, and that will be
So good news for
considered
next month.
considered for a new municipal parking lot. And it was anticipated, just as a side note, from Rowe Engineering, who's going to do the soil boring samples for the pedestrian crosswalks, that the same company do the sample testing on that vacant lot where the basement was filled in at the same time. It would save us a significant amount of money versus having somebody else come on and do it separate. So I'm waiting for an estimate on that. Okay. made annexation.
Good
You're
evening.
back. Welcome back. Okay.
Madam President, members of the board, as you know, I'm Larry Scott from O'Reilly Rancilio. And first off, I want to apologize. In all my years of public meetings, this is the first one I've ever appeared at without a suit and tie. I went to the office this morning and looked at my calendar and went, oh no. So I apologize for my casual appearance.
We should supply that.
It is
The
noted,
restaurants used to give you a suit coat and a tie. We should have that.
I had one on the back of my door, but it didn't go with the rest of the outfit. In any event, if you're scratching your heads and saying this looks familiar, it is. We were here before, and you were kind enough to approve this and sign the resolutions that we had supplied through Mr. Clark. And it went to the county, and the county had some difficulty with a parcel that was excluded. There's a parcel in the middle of this that did not want to participate, and we explained that earlier. We submitted the resolution to the county, and the county had some difficulty with creating what they termed an island. So we've gone back with the county and the engineers. We reworked the proposal so that it doesn't create an island, and submitted again resolutions to Mr. Clark for your review and hopefully your approval, which will then allow us, after the township signs the resolutions and hopefully submits them to the County Board of Commissioners, then we'll go back to the County Board of Commissioners to have the annexation approved. Same program, nothing's changed, except we've added an entranceway, if you will, to that, what the county deemed to be an island. But other than that, nothing's changed. So like I said, if you're looking at this and thinking to yourself, I've seen this before, you have, and you approved it. So we're just back to try to get it back on track. And I'm happy to answer any questions anybody
Where
may
did you
have.
provide the entranceway? Is that the Chet's Way? They have egress on your main driveway?
I'm sorry.
You said that you provided an entrance.
If you look at the, yeah,
It's right here?
right,
Okay. So the existing road, they have full-time access back and forth?
correct.
and everything.
Nothing's changed there.
Okay.
That's the pond guy.
It's a fine idea.
Need a motion?
Well, before we get our motion in, I had spoke to Chester earlier also. Since, just getting a little bit of flack regarding where we want to put our marijuana facilities. And I had a conversation with Chet on, since we're bringing this into the village, that far east end of this property, since it's undeveloped at this time, we might be able to shove them over there to do a development and to put in your 75 or 1,000 feet, whatever we're looking at, since the property right now is vacant. And he was in agreement with that, saying it could be something that could be worked out. So just in case our existing facilities out there might wiggle a little bit about a plant coming in next to them, we have this space.
It would have to be rezoned because it was going to come in as R1.
Correct.
So it won't have the proper zoning to it, but correct, there is a process that
yeah.
can be applied to it, and we could get the property rezoned at the owner's or the user's request.
And I think this is something that we can definitely look at and not hinder any of our existing facilities over there to where they might say something. And, hell, it's undeveloped land right now, and we also talked about some possible rezoning to multiple, too, so put some more housing, affordable housing around.
I'm reasonably confident you will see this one more time. And that'll be the rezoning.
You're in now, so, right?
For now, we just need to approve the annexation
That's all that's
request
before you.
so that it can go before the County Board of Commissioners and then on to the Office of the Great Seal for final approval. So.
I'll
if
make a
we have
motion to approve. I'll make a motion to approve the annexation.
Support.
We have a motion by Edwards, we have support by Poznanski. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right,
Thank you all.
Good luck, guys. You've been fighting this a long time.
yes, it has been a bit.
Thanks for sticking with us.
DPW snowplow trucks. Tim, you're up.
All right.
Timmy.
Time to think snow.
No.
Hopefully in your packet, Christine put in the different quotes that I got from the different vendors. I only got bids on 2 trucks. based on back in 14, when I priced out 4 different brands, I took the 2 lowest brands for this quote, but the snowplow bodies, or dump bodies and equipment, I did get 3 bids on. The Freightliner came out the cheapest because they are in a co-op, a municipal co-op, which is approximately 52 other municipalities that are in this, and that's why they are able to give us the lowest price. These, just, you know, these prices are ×2.
Right, because we need 2 snowplow trucks.
This is per truck.
Yes.
So it's be $90,000 per truck, and then $74,900 for the dump body and the snow equipment. So basically, you're looking $165,000 per truck.
One of the Freightliner?
It's either the Freightliner or the Western Star,
Just one.
which is the cabin chassis.
Right, that's just the cabin chassis.
Right.
And then we have to send it out to an outfitter to put the dump body, the
You
belly
said
plow,
2 of them,
the front plow.
The 2 line items you're talking about?
You want
No,
this ×2.
2 trucks.
×2.
Right.
Times
So
times
it's
2.
either one of these, plus the equipment, ×2.
I mean, if you look back in 14, when I did the bid, the Mack was basically $1,000 less than what the Freightliner is now. And that's 7 years ago. And when I originally started bidding this stuff out back in the spring, the dump body prices, some of them have gone up like $6,000.
What didn't, I don't know if I was even on the board, but wasn't something like this approved last year?
That may have been for our 550 dump, the small dump truck.
Oh, the small, okay.
Yeah, these are the bigger plow trucks.
Okay. I just remember, yeah.
And if we order them now, we might have them by July 4th next year.
He's not kidding either, right? So
Oh, yeah.
we're not gonna see
Oh, I know.
At least,
Outfitting.
we won't see the cabin chassis till spring of next year, and then they still have to be sent out to be,
Get
What
it
do we do
done.
with the old ones?
hopefully
I mean, I know we're going to use them this season, but
Yeah, we'll use them this season. Actually, when I was in Armada, I was talking to the one guy, telling him that we might be getting new plow trucks, and he said they might be interested in one of them. So,
Is, just for question's sake, is this something we could stagger and do one now and then one?
well, the trucks we have now, one's a 99 and one's a 2000. So, and both of them are basically in the same shape. I mean, we plow, we work on them. Plow, we work on them. So.
And this is.
So you're not recommending a staggered, you feel we need them both as soon as
Cost?
Yes,
possible?
and plus, I mean, if you wait a year, I mean, who knows? I mean, with the prices of things, like I said, the dump bodies have gone up. The one company went up $6,000 just in a matter of 2 months.
So that basically this is 331 and change, or right, if I'm adding that up, right?
Yeah,
About 330, and then motor pool doesn't have, what do we have budgeted?
No, we talked about this at our goals and objectives at about a figure of 300,000, and Tim suggested that we finance them. However, with our new CARES Act money, we should be able to take some of the cost for the generator that Al needs at the wastewater treatment plant and put that towards the federal CARES Act money, which would free up more money in this budget to just buy these outright. Is how I anticipate it. But if ultimately we have to finance it, that's how Tim crafted the budget for this fiscal year.
So, okay.
So we can either bring a budget amendment of just reappropriating funds to different areas once we get the federal CARES Act money, or we can just proceed with the financing that Tim built in.
What's your recommendation?
Well, my recommendation is to wait and see what, I mean, we need the 2 trucks, so he should certainly order them. How we finance them, or if we budget it and pay for it this year, or we stretch it out over 2 or 3 years, if the money is there, I don't know why we would pay interest on it.
More than likely, you won't see a payment till next August anyways.
Right. Or they might require a small deposit,
Depending
right.
on when they come in.
so I guess I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the 2 trucks per Tim's recommendation, the Freightliner with the Schultz equipment and looks like the Freightliner cabin chassis.
That was the previous.
Oh, that's the previous.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Edwards, we have support by Parker. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Edwards?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Barnett?
Yes.
President Obama?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you.
All right, Al, you're up.
No money left.
No.
Right?
You know,
I know, I think they asked the last
What
time
a
that we
deal, I was
reversed
supposed to go
that.
first every time.
Right.
Sorry. All right, so, the pumping, we're speaking of, we have 3 pumps that pump water to the top of the tower. It's our bio tower. It has biological growth on it and does a lot of the cleaning of the water. It trickles down the media. We have 3 exact same pumps, and we switch them off every month. Each of these 3 pumps, they were put in, I've rebuilt each one 2 times. The shafts keep breaking. The pump, they're not good pumps. So now they're telling us that they stop, making them, which makes a lot of sense because they're not good pumps. So we can't get parts for them. So I got some quotes from 3 different companies. Kerr Pump, Detroit Pump, and the other one was Kennedy Industries. The cheapest was with Kerr Pump. They want to just keep the motor and just replace the pump. The most expensive was Kennedy. They want $65,000 to replace just one pump. For the price that Kerr Pump wants, I can replace all 3 of them for that amount. In our goals and objectives this year, the 3-year plan, I stated that I wanted to replace one of these pumps every year for the next 3 years. Because 2 of them are running right now. And so this is something that really pretty much needs to be done so we can maintain operations. I did have Kerr Pump, which is the cheapest, call me and tell me that they did raise their prices. No surprise. Their original price with installation was $12,991. It is now $15,659, but they're still the cheapest by far.
So you said Kerr is just replacing part of the?
They're going to keep the motor,
Okay.
which is motor like this, so that you probably know that it's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
So we're just going to replace the pump.
Understandable. And
So the other
Detroit
ones were replacing
wouldn't
the
do?
motor and pump. Excuse me?
Go ahead, finish.
No, the other ones would have replaced the whole motor and pump, and with the actual new kind of pump, and they're nice. They're very nice pumps, but they're not for the money.
How is the current motor? What state is
Motor
that in?
is fine. It doesn't seem to have any issues. It's just
Check all the seals and everything here, make sure it's...
yeah. The motor's fine. The motor runs fine. We just keep breaking shafts on the pumps.
So it's your recommendation to go with the Kerr bid?
With the Kerr bid at the current price for $15,659.
I'll make a motion that we go with Kerr Pump and Supply for that amount.
Support.
And this is just for one now, right now?
This is just for one right now.
But you want to do it next year?
But there is a 20-month wait. So we might see the 20-month, I take that back, 20-week wait. We might see it late winter, early spring. So same sort of thing going on with that. It's happening all over the place.
But you have 2 more that have to be done down the road?
Yes, I plan to put for another one every year for the next 3 years. Now, I did want to bring something up there. I need the exact same pump. I can't, we change these off every month, so I can't have one that pumps this much this month and pumping this one this much next month. And then I only like to keep one spare set of bearings, one spare set of seals, okay, that sort of thing. So what is my plan? If you tell me okay on, say, the Kerr pump tonight,
to come back to you next year with just one quote from Curb Pump to get the exact same pump, just so we know ahead of time. And then the following year, same thing.
What kind of cost savings would we get if we purchased all of them in 1 year?
I don't really know. I didn't check that out. It wasn't part of my plan. The other two are running and seem to be doing okay.
So if we're on a 12-week out and we approve the purchase of one for $15,659, you would still then, before the equipment arrived, bring it back next month with that question answered, and perhaps we could authorize the other two subsequently.
Certainly.
Even
if there was a cost savings.
I do have
If we just
other,
purchased the pumps and they sat on site
I do have
for
other
future
things.
install?
Right, I do have other things on my list that I wanted to do this year too. That might take up most of that money too. So, but that's fine, I can certainly bring that back to you.
Again, depending on how the CARES Act money comes down, that's restricted to what we can use it, and certainly wastewater is one of the areas that they really want us to look at, especially focusing on that infrastructure. So it's capped at, what we can and cannot use it for. We can't use it for roads, by the way. So we have a motion on the floor by Bartholomew. Do we have support?
Megan Poznansky?
Oh, okay, Megan. Any other discussion? Roll call, please. Bartholomew?
Yes.
Poznansky?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
President Elzon? Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al. That's okay. All right, let's move on to roads. James Vitrano was with us. We appreciate him coming back and updating the roads report.
Thank you very much for having me again. The presentation that's in your packet is very similar to the one that was provided December 2020 to the Master Plan Committee. We updated the numbers. When I say we, HRC worked on the road side, and then I helped, with Tim's help in your office, work on some of the financing options that you would have. The work behind this is definitely something for the trustees to consider. If you decide to move forward with a road program, a multi-year road program, HRC would work with you along with your finance staff, and probably if you depending how you plan to finance this, a financial professional on how you would acquire the funds, whether that's through millage or whether that's through fund balance or whether that's through a mix of both. Those things would be your next steps. But the goal today is just kind of orient you along with HRC. I've done this in a number of municipalities of looking at roads not as a singular year item, but as a 20-year plan. The goal is to provide scenarios that allow you to project that for year over year, which then for your residents provide some consistency. They understand what's going to be invested in the roads year over year, and not necessarily whatever the current council or the current board of trustees decides to allocate for that next budget year. Historically, and I'm on slide 3, historically the village is very much like many municipalities across Michigan. Large infrequent investments, full reconstruction of the road, and a worst first strategy. So a road gets down to literally the worst road in the community. A large amount of money is received either through a bond or a loan or a fund balance, and then that one road down to the core gets rebuilt, and you have one really nice road, and then the cycle starts again. The new strategy really would be focusing more on getting new roads up to speed or up to snuff, and then maintaining them at a middle pace. So a lot more chip seal, a lot more tarring, a lot more road patching by contractors instead of cold patch and holes. Just a consistent plan that HRC would develop. And they call it a mix of fixes. Slide 4 is really the most important in the deck. The engineers estimate that if you can keep your road at an OCI score of 6, and I will define OCI. OCI is your score that the engineers give your roads, every single road, and there's a map following in your packet, gets a score from 1 to 10. A brand new road is a 10. A road that has failed entirely is a 1, and then everything in between. So certified engineers go through, and this is called a PASER scale, and they give them ratings. What they found, or have found over the last several decades, is that if they can keep a road at about a 6, or I'm sorry, your average network at about a 6, you can keep your roads at about a 6, between a 4 and a 7, about a 6, consistently, by a consistent investment. In this case, we're using a number of $350,000. If you invest that in the roads on a regularly consistent basis, you could keep your roads in that middle band. Now, it takes a while, so the sooner you start, the sooner you can get to that. And it also takes patience from the community, because that means that there are going to be some roads that are failing that won't get the first treatment. You may want to, or the engineers may advise you, that you go to a road that's rated a 3 and put in money so that you can get that 3 up to a 6 and maintain it for a number of years, or a lot of roads that are a 3, and that 1 will have to wait until funding is available. So while it sounds really good to get your roads at a 6 and maintain them there, there's always a flip side. It requires patience from the community. But it is the strategy that a lot of Michigan communities are going towards, to identify a plan and work to a 20-year goal. As your roads get closer to failure, it gets much more expensive to improve them, and that's slide 5. HRC was going to provide updated dollars. They weren't able to provide it in time for this presentation, but the number value doesn't really matter on 5. It's the amount spread between if you do something to a 7 versus a 1. What I really like about slide 5, you can start conceptualizing what you would actually be doing to a road that's a 7, which is in fairly good shape, and that's a routine crack seal, versus what you have to do with a road that's down at a 2, which is reconstruction with base repair. And you can see that same mile of road is an $18,000 investment versus a $1.1 million investment. So really focusing on maintaining all roads at a certain average amount is the 20-year strategy. To slide 6, which pretty much reiterates what I've already verbalized in terms of the 20-year strategy and shooting for a 6. So when we model these, we shoot for that 6. It gives both the engineers and the finance people a target. So instead of a target being get all your roads to a 10 or get all your roads to something else, getting them to a 6 is what the models try and do in this case. So HRC is the company that your village engineers, they do the PASER ratings. They did a PASER rating, or an average rating, for your road system in 2017, and they did one in 2020. And on slide 7, you can see the difference between 2017 and 2020, where your poor roads, which those are ones that are rated a 1 to 3, was at 72% in 2017, and that jumped up to 92% in 2020. There was not extensive repairs done in those times that HRC noted in their report. There was some road work done, but not extensive. And your current PASER rating is about a 2.18, with the next slide, slide 8, showing your road condition, which you've got a lot of roads in the failed or very poor section. Actually a lot, excuse me, in the very poor section. So 3s and 2s. That's where you're starting. And that's not a great place to start, but it's where you are today with your roads. So slide 9, we reviewed a number of different scenarios, but we've graphed for you 3 different ones. And I'll be focusing on the first one, the green, and the last one, orange. Orange is the scenario that gets you spending the least with getting to 6.0 over that 20-year period. The green, I'll show you the difference between the two, gets you to the same place, but it gets all of your roads touched in that 20-year period. So if you go to slide 10, this is just a graphical depiction of those investments. So you can see in each of the scenarios, there's an initial amount that is invested. and that number changes. In the orange, it's 2 million, and in the green, it's 5 million, with blue and yellow being in between. But the orange will jump up your average rating in that first couple of years to get you up above, I think that's above 3 and close to 4. And then with $350,000 a year, you keep maintaining till you get to a 6.1. What the engineers like about any of these scenarios, but the orange one is the least expensive, if you keep going at that rate, 350,000, then the trend line you can follow will keep going up. Now, there's a point where you're going to have to increase 300,000 to keep that trend rate going up. But for at least the first period, the first 20 years of the plan, it keeps getting better. Your roads keep getting better. What has done historically, communities will go out and bond for 2 million and then kind of sit on it for a little bit. And then 5 years later, go out for 2 million and kind of sit on it for a little bit. And your graphs get jagged, right? And then when you stop going out for those bonds every 5 years, you just start going down until you kind of get to failure in a majority of your roads. You see the green is probably excessive. It gets you all the way to an 8 at the end of the 20-year period. It is quite expensive. I'll show you, or I'll tell you why we also modeled 8. Just so you could communicate it to your community. I think one of the most important things, if you do decide to do this type of program, is communicating to the community, having open houses to explain this is a patient process. So everybody's going to hear that you're getting serious about roads and you're getting road funding, and that usually means, in my ears, that's my road. The plan has to be communicated, and HRC, your engineers, should be the ones that are dictating the type of fix and which roads, along with your DPW, and coordinating with your water and sewer in terms of the repairs that would be needed for those utilities. And HRC can work with your staff well to accommodate that. So if we go to, now I'm going to jump to cost for, or funding, excuse me. If we go to slide 11, there are lots of ways for you to fund your roads. I've focused on your current millage. I've told you what I've explained things in mills in terms of the numbers. But if you have an extra $350,000 annually that you can set aside from another budget, great. I'm not advising that you have to go for a millage. I'm not advising that you have to do it anyway to get the funding. All I am with HRC saying is $2 million up front with an average after that of $350,000 gets you on a 20-year path to a road condition that would be at a level that the engineers would find acceptable, and that in time your community would too. If you go to the next slide, I've cut the number off, I apologize, slide 12. This is the kind of Cadillac solution where you invest $5 million up front and you annually invest $350,000 after that. What I'm pointing to, and it's small on your sheet, is if you go out to the year 2040, and that's the very last numbers with the upward arrow, and you look at your road miles that are poor or fair, you see zeros, and you see in the good it's all of your lane miles. So you could go to your community and say, by that year, you know, all the roads are in really great condition and we've touched them all, and our average rating is an 8. That's really great, but it's also really expensive, and it tends not to be the solution that communities are looking for, because while that is really an outstanding achievement, you've invested a tremendous amount of your resources into your roads over that 20-year period. If you go to the next slide, this is the slide that from our perspective and HRC's is what we tend to see communities going for on a 20-year plan. Remember, this is $2 million in investment at the beginning with $350,000 invested after that each year, with the goal of getting to a 6.0 at the end of a 20-year period. That's great, and then you'll keep maintaining at that $350,000 into the future. Unfortunately, or what you're left with is some poor roads at the end of your 20-year period. You'll have 72% of your roads at good, which is great, but you'll still have 27% at poor that will still need work as you go forward with the program. But the trend line continues to go up. So those poor roads will get fixed. If you continue to invest, it will just take longer. The graphs are very linear, right? So the more you invest up front, the more you invest on an annual, HRC can run any scenario you would like. We're just providing you in these two more detailed, two examples of how you can get on a 20-year road plan to improve the condition of your road on a very methodical way. Regardless of what plan you go to, regardless if you decide to do an upfront amount or not, I'm certain HRC from other presentations would agree with me, it's the consistent amount that's what's important, and the mix of fixes, that you're not just doing reconstructs every year with a large amount. When I say $350,000 every year, that's not exactly the amount that will be put into the road every year. Some years you may not do a road because that segment you're going to do is $700,000. So you're going to take your 2 years, and HRC will advise that that's how you're going to get that road. Because if your road, some of your roads are at a 2 or 3 now, you really need to save some money to elevate their condition, which is also part of that calculation and why it's a little bit more delayed in that second graph. That, I think, is pretty consistent with the presentation I gave at the master plan meeting back in December. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions. HRC was going to be here this evening, but unfortunately had an issue that they could not attend. They really would drive the plan for you, or whoever your village engineer is at whatever time during the period. And if you decide this is something you want to go forward with, then working with Tim and however you choose to finance, they could provide options for you.
Any questions? Any suggestions?
Well, I think it's time to move, and we need to find out, you know, if we're going to bond, what the cost of money is going to be, what we can afford, but we can't neglect this any longer. If you saw what's happened in the last 3 years, and again, people don't want to pay more money than they have to for things, but the village has very nice homes. The people expect to have nice roads. I remember our roads in 2003 were awesome. It had been, a lot of them had been redone, and we came in and really enjoyed that. And now, I've just seen them deteriorating so fast. So I think we should move forward on the next step, and I guess that's probably finding the cost of money, and that's how we can determine which level of plan we go to. But we need to start moving on it.
Okay.
20 years, is that pretty much standard across what's going on now?
Yeah, 20 years has been what I've seen. Longer than that, and that's on the very edge of as long as we are comfortable, or HRCs is comfortable with their model. We could certainly do shorter. They can do shorter in terms of modeling. It just costs more, but those models can get shorter but no longer.
We could always do more in 5 years or 10 years, depending on how financed they're. We could bump things up, or, you know, but we got to at least start some plan.
Yeah, I agree. I think 20 years is too long, personally. I think that's...
I'm not sure that we could afford to do it any faster than that. One of the other things that Catherine asked James for clarification on, and if you're able to speak on it tonight, the cemetery board wants to redo the roads in the cemetery. We all know that they're in really bad condition. They were working with, I believe Rowe Engineering came out and said they needed about $250,000 to address the roads. Catherine was asking James about financing for that, and he has suggested that if we are going to sell bonds, that we include that portion for the cemetery roads in our proposal, and then have the cemetery board, out of their allocations, pay that bond payment back, so that they could, because they don't have the capital to do it right now, and they're not able to borrow money as a cemetery board either. So just something to consider as we look to maybe get two birds done with one stone. So
the question I would have, James, it sounds like we would want to move forward doing something. We need to do that. We don't know what what level plan, because we don't know what we can afford and what we can't. Would the next step have someone come in and talk about what the bonds are, what the rates are, and what $2 million cost to us, what $4 million cost us?
Sure. And I've provided some calculations in here in terms of what that millage would gain you and how much that would cost. But the next step is to have somebody break that down. And also the next step is for you to talk about, is there a piece of fund balance that you wish to invest in your roads? Are there other balances that you have available to invest in your own to buy down some of that bond cost or bonded funds? So that's really the next step. I mean, that's what we're looking for. If this is the approach you'd like, it won't be me. It'll be somebody that's in the bond market that understands those options, and they can work through financing options.
Because that millage is not an option. It's going to have to be bonded, right? I mean, we don't have the ability to.
There's two pieces to this. If you go to slide, and I apologize if I went through it quickly, if you go to slide 13, in this scenario, if you wanted $2 million up front and $350,000 per year, you would want to do, the $350,000, remember, is what I'm most concerned about for you. That is the important number. This initial investment that you find, whether it's fund balance or bonding for, that's a number that you need to talk among yourself and figure out what the right number is. The $350,000, if you went for a road millage, so that you communicated to the community, it's only for roads. If you give 2.15 mils based on your 2020 valuation, that would gain you the $350,000 per year that you're communicating to the community. Will only go to roads, and it gets you this 350 amount.
That's an option for us as a village?
That's very close to your Headley override amount. So your authorized mills is 15. You're currently at 12.8. Your override is 2.1 mils. And so that gives you 344,000, right where you would need to be. So if you went the Headley override methodology, and I would have to work with your village attorney or your finance person to make sure that we dot the i's and cross the t's. But certainly a Headley override along with a road millage has been done in other communities, and you're communicating to your residents, yes, it's a Headley override, yes, we're going to be at 15, but the 2 point, whatever you're giving us, 2.1 is only for roads, and it's restricted.
Yeah. Well, if we have a good plan, I think people want their roads fixed.
Okay. So I will reach out to Colleen from HRC, who's sort of our roads guru over there, and see if she can put together a better plan for costs in the areas of biggest need, right? And then meet with Tim, probably reach out to Benzinski, they are our current bond holder, and see if they could draft a proposal and bring it back.
Yeah, this is the number one thing that we all agreed on when we were talking about goals and objectives, so I think we need to continue moving forward and do something, absolutely.
If we were going to ask for a Headley override, it wouldn't be on the ballot. The earliest we could get it on the ballot would be springtime. It won't be in time for November, because that deadline's already passed. I'll have to verify the date of which the ballot proposal language would even need to be submitted to be on May, I believe, would be the soonest. Are you thinking that as well?
Yeah, I'm trying to think through kind of your timing, and I can work with your staff on laying that on a spreadsheet, but if you have a Headley override in May, and then that'll go to your, I think that would go to your summer taxes. I don't think you'll have to wait till your winter taxes.
We only have one, so.
You only have summer or winter?
Summer.
So hopefully you hit your summer, which gets you the $350,000 for the next construction period. If you decide to bond for some dollars or take fund balance out, you can definitely kickstart the program with that year one and year two even in that in next construction season. And again, working with your DPW staff, your water and your sewer staff to identify those roads along with HRC. But it'd be really important to have that whole plan buttoned up in advance of winter this year so that you can hit the ground running with your one-time slug of money in this next construction season and the following as you get that $350,000, if you choose to do it, millage override. Then you're hitting your pace for that third year.
Thank you very much,
Be in
James.
touch.
I'm going
Thank
to stay
you.
right there and segue into wage and salary is the next agenda item.
Sure.
Or do you need a few minutes?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, good.
If you're good.
We're good.
All right. The village asked that we do a wage survey report, and we did. We sent out a survey to some other cities and villages of comparable type and size, and you can see it in the addendum that I included, why we included the villages and cities that we included. We could include lots of others. We did include Bruce and Washington since you are embedded in them. But at the end of the day, we identified 14 potential cities and then found the 7 closest matches. And of those 7, 5 were responsive. It's important to note that this is pretty much raw survey data. Until I get to page 3, I think in my memo when I do a little bit of analysis, this should be considered raw survey data from these communities. It wasn't followed up with verification, but it's with high confidence that these communities provided us with the wages of their employees that were consistent with the descriptions that we provided. In addition to noting that, I think it's important that sometimes the same titles have different levels of licensure. For instance, your DPW superintendent has a license that other DPW superintendents may not have. So while we can give you the data the best we can from the communities that are most like you, there will be differences between positions. And that's just a fact. And the other last caveat is some of those communities only had 1 or 2 matched positions. So the important chart is that raw data chart on second page. And the communities that we used for the audience is Holly Village, Keego Harbor City, Lathrop Village City, Oxford Village, and Wolverine Lake City. Those are the ones that, based on budget, population, metrics, that were closest to Romeo and responsive to the survey. Again, that raw data is really what you would ask for and what we've provided. Some of the positions are contracted. The contracted amounts were not included, and some were combined, particularly your administrator, clerk, and treasurer positions, which are noted in the spreadsheet. Following that, I did give you the Bruce and Washington townships. From my perspective, this is more just FYI. These are not comparable communities to you, but it is important that you're aware of their wage ranges because, frankly, it's who you're competing for employees with most closely in the municipal level, but they wouldn't be defined as comparables, at least as we define comparable communities. We then did a little bit of analysis to say where you were at the communities choose where they pay their employees. You can be at 50% of your peers, so that means you're right in the middle. Some communities pay more than you and some pay less. You could be at 75% as a policy, saying we're going to pay our employees at the 75th percentile more than the average community because it's our goal to retain. Or you could retain and hire and bring the best in, maybe from other communities. Or you could pay at 25% and say that with our financial condition, it's appropriate that we're at the lower end of the spectrum. It's absolutely a spectrum, and each community chooses how to compensate. The next page, we provided a little bit more analysis on the positions of clerk and treasurer. You can look at the raw data, or you can look at the data that combines the clerk treasurer position duties that maybe 2 employees do for your community, and provided that data. Wage setting, I'm not here to advise on that. That is entirely a decision of the elected body. We did provide the difference at that 50 percentile, and on average, your positions, this is, and I should have said this up front, I apologize. This is only your non-union positions that we've done the analysis for. On average, you're pretty close. For several of your positions, you're, within a few bucks of the 50 percentile. There's a couple outliers, and that you may want to do more investigation as to why those are outliers. But if and when you go to rehire or hire to these positions, it's likely you're going to be needing to be in that 50 percentile as you hire. The elected positions are a little bit different because you're not hiring them. But for those non-union positions of police chief, DPW superintendent, wastewater treatment director, HR, AP admin, utility billing, building and zoning admin, generally you're within range. There's one position you could see in there that's a little bit more out of range. But I think overall Romeo's kept up with many of the positions, only requiring some minor modifications if you wish to stay at the 50%. Your duties as administrator is way off from the others. All of the other positions have a hired administrator, not an elected administrator. Similarly with the clerk and the treasurer positions, you're off quite a bit or you're off a little bit depending how you want to treat those deputy positions as you make an analysis of those two positions. But again, the other communities generally all, I want to make sure I'm saying that correctly, all have those positions doing those duties as hired positions and not appointed. It's very difficult to find, hired, not elected. It's very difficult to find elected administrator, treasurer, clerk at the village level to do any analysis. So that's a difficult analysis for anyone to do because Romeo has these three positions that are elected, and your comparable communities in the area all have them as appointed positions. Trustee council member data was also collected and some provided from the communities, and I placed that on the last page just to provide you all the data that I received. The last is that appendix, and I do think it's important to take a look at the appendix. When doing classification and compensation, and this is just a wage study and not a compensation study, it's just a wage, survey, we really do focus on comparable communities. And so that's our number one goal when we're putting this together, is finding them, surveying them, trying to get the data. We could certainly follow up with any of them. A lot of positions are individualistic. Your administrator, clerk, and treasurer positions all are unique, but the duties that they're doing compared to the duties that the appointed positions are doing are very similar. So, while the way they are in office is different, the expectations of what's getting done, I would expect, is similar between the other communities and Romeo. I'm happy to take questions if you would like.
Population of Lathrop Village.
Population of Lathrop Village is 4,091.
That was one of your counts?
Correct.
Oxford?
Oxford, 3,556.
That's within the village of Oxford?
Correct.
And Lathrop Village is a village or a city?
Lathrop Village is a city. Oxford is a village.
Oxford has the appointed position?
Oxford has an appointed position, correct.
All of them have appointed positions, Zach. No one else has an elected out of the comparables.
Makes us unique then, right?
Indeed. One of the reasons that we did this wage and compensation study, in this very difficult employment market, is to make sure that we're retaining and attracting the best candidate as we look forward to making succession plans, or possible staffing changes. We really do need to make sure that we can attract the best candidates, as well as retain our employees. We wouldn't want to lose any of them because they can go to a neighboring community and make $2 or $3 an hour more, which is significant when you're looking at, this is somebody's livelihood. They're funding, their children's education and retirements, and so it all plays a part. Where we have our unions and we do the union negotiations, right, they have somebody who's advocating for them. And so this study to me was important to showcase that somebody really is looking out for all the other non-union employees that the village employs. So,
I think the 50% to me is a good, to be right in the middle, not the highest and not the lowest, is, where I would always be in business, your employees, you want to not make payroll a negative, not being paid enough.
I would agree. I think that's where we've always strived to be. Right, somewhat in the middle, not too high, not too low, but right there.
So we have further down on the agenda, performance reviews, a closed session, and I have a performance review for Al Lapierre, Dan Sokolnicki, Tim Metz, Cindy Wilson, Darlene Mazer, Rebecca DiLorenzo, Christine Pilarski, and Caroline Miller. A number of them are here. They have asked to be in closed session to receive those performance reviews. If we need to acknowledge their consent, they are here and they can agree, or we can give those reviews in the public meeting. So,
before you move to that,
yes.
Are there any more questions on here, and I'll sit down? Okay.
Thanks, James.
What, you don't want to be on the firing line for that, James? All right, thank you. So we move into our village to city discussion. Trustee Poznanski asked to have this on the agenda and to have a copy of the minutes included.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this back up. About a year ago, last month, this board made a decision to go ahead with the subcommittee's recommendation to move forward. About $10,000 was spent, and from there we've been updated. The only time I can recall an update is at the new year. So I was wondering, what are we doing? Is there anything in our budget moving forward, and are we working on this?
Wasn't everything just waiting for annexation?
Yes. That's exactly right. That was my last report, is that the next step in that process, if you revisit that village to city document, was that we needed to do a boundary survey. And the boundary survey needs to be clear what our boundaries are. And since we were entertaining, at the time, 2 annexations, those boundaries were set to change. The Ray Township annexation, I don't even know, has that been amended or approved by the Office of the Great Seal? Because even that, even though the county commissioners did it, I know there was some paperwork issues. Okay, so that technically is in the process, but
we just did tonight.
right. We were waiting for Chester's group to get it before the county road commission, the county commissioners, and then it still has to go to the Office of the Great Seal before it can be amended, and then we can move forward with the boundary survey. Now, I can do the boundary survey now if you want, but it seems prudent to me, since we're not under any time frame, to wait and just have one expenditure for that service. So that's why we have not done anything. Does that answer your question, or do you have other questions?
So if we're waiting on annexation, and the process does happen, we move forward, then are we not going to look at annexing further, or can we not, as a
part of, I don't know,
as a city, can we not annex property any further?
It's in the report. Yes, it's a different process, but typically annexations don't happen at the city level.
Okay.
It can, but it typically doesn't.
So we are moving forward with this, and we do have money in our budget to cover it.
We actually have not budgeted for any expenditures in this fiscal year, as far as I'm aware. Zach mentioned several times that there was money for the consultant. I'm sorry?
Your accountant mentioned that there was money.
Yes, that is not a budgeted line item that I'm aware of. I don't anticipate the cost for a boundary survey being significant, but I do not have a bid on it yet. I was just simply waiting until we actually knew that we were clear to go.
And he didn't indicate the money was there for a boundary survey. He said that you had monies tied into your consultants to do the labor.
No, the consulting fees are just set
what your
from,
accountant said.
right, well, Tim drafts the budget per our recommendations, so he misspoke on that. So there is not money. There is money for consulting fees, yes. What those consulting fees are used for at this point is not for village to city, because that process and the work that James did with that committee has been completed.
So the next step is this boundary survey, and we have we don't plan on doing anything with that this year, is what you're saying?
Well, my hope was that if we were going to move roads forward and we were going to hold public forums and open houses and community engagements, that we would certainly have an opportunity, now that we're out from the COVID restrictions, to present that report. There's some great data that is in that report. It speaks for itself. There's a lot of facts that are out in the community that are misrepresentative of the data that is in the report. And while you certainly are welcome to your own opinion whether or not you think village to city is a good idea or a bad idea, regardless of that, the data speaks for the data, that it does not increase your taxes, right? It doesn't jeopardize any current relationships that we have. It reduces your form of government. So what I read out there previously was that, we would be big government. Right now, we have 4 governments, soon to be 5 if our Meta Annex is in, 4 government bodies that have a say over Romeo. We become a city, it's 1 government body. You look at that wage and compensation study, we pay the supervisor's salary and the trustee's salary for Bruce Township and for Washington Township. We would be removed from that obligation. They certainly would, probably miss our tax dollars, but the data, again, supports the cost in it. Again, I refer back to that report. The cost for assessing is saved in the cost that we spend in Bruce Township right now. For elections, the same thing. We currently pay for elections, even though we don't perform them here. We pay both township offices to do that service. So there was no additional cost in this process.
Speaking of the data, you put out a survey, and over 75% of the residents indicated that they wanted to stay village. So
I don't believe that. I would have to look at what survey you're speaking of.
It was, yeah, I mean,
and I don't believe that. I don't believe that, Jack.
Okay.
I believe that your numbers are slightly skewed to that. Right.
Didn't the committee, though, vote to go forward?
Yes. The committee recommended it, and this board decided to move forward. I also wanted just to take a quick note, because again, there's some misinformation out there. Somebody recently cited a bunch of villages that they visited around the state of Michigan, and I would say that, again, please read the report. There are specific requirements for what you can and cannot do if you wish to become a city. One, you have to have a minimum population. And a lot of these places that were cited that are charming little villages in the state of Michigan can't become a city because they have less than 1,000 residents. So they're not even qualified. Some of the other ones are applicable to become a city, but I should also know in my research, they all have hired managers, village managers, or city managers, hired clerks, and hired treasurers. Some of those are combined in duties. But again, I urge everybody to take a look at that report, and hopefully if we have these community engagements for roads, we can share that information and get it out there. So, did that answer your question, Trustee Posanski, or do you have anything else?
Yes, could we continue to be updated on this as things evolve? So we don't have a year lapse really before we kind of talk about it, air it out there, so there's not anything angst going on in the community. We have the Parks and Rec throwing it in their dissolution possibility because they're wondering what we're doing. Just trying to get it out there so that there's some transparency and fluid information going on here.
I'm happy to answer a question anytime that it is posed.
And I knew what the reason was. I've had people ask me, and I'm like, we don't know what the boundary is, and it's just on hold right now. And I've had a number of people, and I've given them the basic, kind of information. And there has been a lot of misinformation out there.
So you were on that committee, correct?
I'm not necessarily, no, I wasn't. I'm not necessarily even for or against it, but I'm certainly for a good, honest debate and the option for residents to choose what they want to do with the facts and having an open, honest discussion. That's what I'm personally for.
Right. This is not a political, it shouldn't be a political battle. And that's sort of what it became over the last election cycle, a political battle. But
I don't think so. I think you're correct. I think it should stay a non-political political, nonpartisan. It should stay within our residents' hands. And I think it's been going that way, and that's why I asked for some clarification here. There's been some questions, and I wanted to air it out and let everybody know what's going on.
Well,
So that we don't have to have individual questions to different trustees, because that's where what you have, this miscommunication of the facts. If we air it out and we talk about it and we get it out there, then there doesn't need to be a miscommunication, and the people are fully and duly informed.
Absolutely.
But the last report is up to date. The last report that President Malzahn gave on that is up to date. There's nothing that has changed since that report. So there hasn't been anything to update.
Okay, and sometimes that just needs to be reiterated, Bob. When there isn't anything and we know that there's something, people start to get anxious, they start to ask questions, they start to get worried. Just maybe reiterating that every once in a while is a good thing.
And some people can fuel that, too.
Okay, let's move on. We're almost done. We added the state of emergency. I added this agenda item, and I apologize. I spoke to Mark briefly about it, and we were waylaid at the Parks and Rec Commission meeting. Earlier in April, I declared a local state of emergency for the pandemic, which allowed for remote meetings to take place. The CDC and the Macomb County, at the state level, originally said through the end of 2021, you could hold remote meetings, and then after that, it would be back in person. So far, they haven't made any amendments to that. When I declared our local state of emergency, we voted to extend it through July 31st. So that is expired. But now with the Delta variant that sort of seems to be rearing its ugly head, some of the board members, some of my chair members, our chair members have expressed an interest in the ability, the desire to go back to remote meetings. I am not recommending that one way or the other, but I do feel like we should give them the latitude to run their meetings how they are comfortable with, and that we have to be considerate that we are still under this pandemic. So I am asking this board to extend that state of emergency through December 31st of 2021.
Make a motion that we,
I'll support it.
Okay, so we have a motion by Fowler. We have support by Hart. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that concludes our business.
motion to go into close?
All right, we have a closed session, again, for performance reviews. First up, so we have
Could
a
we
motion.
start with, is it possible to start with a motion that should we need to go past 10 o'clock, we wrap that up, and we say now make a motion to continue past 10 o'clock so we don't have to come in and out? Or do we need to wait until 10 o'clock to come out and make that decision?
Yeah, I think you can make a motion at any time, so if you
I'll
want
make a
to
motion. Should we
anticipate
need
that,
to go
yes.
past 10
There's a
o'clock?
motion on the floor, waiting for a second.
Okay, we had a motion by Zach to go into closed session. We had support by Hart.
Okay.
Take the roll on that.
Fowler?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes?
President Malzahn?
Yes. And now we have a motion on the floor by trustee
We're in closed session
Poznanski.
right now.
Yeah, that's, we shouldn't have done
I
that.
was
I'm
trying to
sorry.
do that before we did it.
You should have corrected me.
I make a motion to come out of closed session.
Right.
Support.
Let's just do this fast, and then we'll.
Support. We're coming out.
Oh,
Where are we?
We got to come out so that we can make a motion. If we need to go to past 10, we can go past 10, which needs to happen in an open meeting, which is
Knock
still an
this out
open.
within 30
Did anyone support you?
Megan did.
Oh,
I
okay.
said support.
okay.
Just do it now, and then we don't
All
have
in
to
favor?
stop.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion to go extend the meeting.
Past 10 o'clock, should we need to?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion.
Okay.
I make a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
You're going to have to slow down 1 second.
I don't want to vote twice today.
It is 8:53.
All right, this is enter closed session.
Yes.
Who made the motion?
Parker.
Second by Fowler.
Second by Fowler. Parker?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
President Malzahn?
Yes.
Enter into closed session.
Okay, so it is 10:27. We are back out of closed session and into regular session. I would look for a unanimous motion to end this meeting.
Yes, unanimous motion.
Unanimous
Support.
motion to adjourn? Yes?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, meeting adjourned. It's 10:27.